Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. I am so happy to have you here today. I am a little bit sick this week, so if I sound a bit off, that would be why. But recently I designed this granny square crochet sun hat or bucket hat, whatever you want to call it, and I posted a picture to my Instagram story asking if any of you wanted to see a tutorial. And the answer was definitely yes. I have since given away this hat to a family member, and now I want to make one for myself. So that's exactly what I'm going to do today, and I'm going to bring you along with me and show you how it's done. So here is the tutorial for this adorable bucket hat or sun hat. I'll be using 3 different colors of acrylic yarn, and you can use as many colors as you want for your hat. My only recommendation is if you want the seams of the hat to look very crisp and almost unnoticeable, then I recommend that you make the border of each of the granny squares the same color, as well as the brim the same color. So I'll be making both the brim of the hat and the borders of the granny square with this white. That way when we sew it all together, you can't see where I put the stitches in. So I'm going to start with the very center of my granny square, and that's going to be this blue. I am just using scrap acrylic yarn for this project, as well as I want to say about a 5.5 millimeter hook. And I'm just going to take my blue yarn here and I'm going to cast on. Okay, and then we're going to begin by chaining 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm inserting my hook into that very first chain, and I'm going to yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops, creating a slip stitch. So now we have a little bit of a circle here starting, and I'm going to go ahead and chain 2, and then I'm going to double crochet twice into the circle. So I'm just inserting my hook right into the middle of this circle that we made with our chain, and there's 2 double crochets. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 2, and then I'm going to place another 3 double crochets right into that circle. So this is our very first corner of the square. 1, 2, and 3 double crochets. I'm then going to chain 2 again and place another 3 double crochets into the center of the circle. 2 and 3, chain 2 again, and lastly place another 3 double crochets into the center of the circle. Okay, I just realized I had my microphone turned off that whole time, so I apologize for that, but here's our good audio now. So now you can see we have the 3 corners of our square, and we're going to make our very last corner by chaining 2, and then I'm going to insert my hook into that first double crochet that we made, pull the yarn through both loops, making another slip stitch. So there is the center of our granny square, and now I'm going to switch colors for the next row. So I'm going to chain 1 and cast off my work. And of course I leave a little bit of a tail at the end so we can weave that in later. And now for the next row, I'm going to bring in my white yarn. So I'm going to insert my hook into any one of these 4 corners. I'm just going to pick this one, and I'm going to bring my white yarn through, and I'm going to chain 2. Making our first double crochet. So now I'm going to do 2 more double crochets into this corner. So if we count the 2 chains as a double crochet, then we have 3 double crochets so far coming out of that one corner. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 2 and then place another 3 double crochets into the exact same corner. And 3, and now I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to skip all the way to the next corner here, insert my hook, and place 3 double crochets into that corner. I'm then going to chain 2 and place another 3 double crochets into that same exact corner. And I'm going to repeat that all the way around the rest of the row. So I'm going to chain 1, and then into this corner, I'm going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and I'm going to continue that all the way around. I'll see you at the end of the row. So now at the end here, I'm going to go ahead and chain 1. I'm going to insert my hook into that first stitch that we made, that first double crochet, and then I'm going to pull the yarn through into a slip stitch. And again, I'm going to switch colors for our next row, so I'm going to chain 1 and cast off. And so now for this next color, I'm going to be doing our green. So let me find the end here. There we go. And again, I'm going to insert my hook into any one of these 4 corners around the square. So I'm just going to go right into this corner, and I'm going to bring my green yarn through, and I'm going to chain 2 to imitate our first double crochet. I'm then going to place 2 more double crochets into that corner. I'm going to chain 2, and then another 3 double crochets are going into that exact same corner. 2 and 3. And now again, I'm going to chain 1. And now we have this section here in between our 2 corners, so I'm going to insert my hook into that section and place 3 double crochets. I'm then going to chain 1. And now into this next corner, we're going to do another corner stitch. So we're doing 3 double crochets. Chain 2. And another 3 double crochets into the exact same corner. So this is essentially the exact same thing that we did in that last row, only now there's an extra section here in the middle. So I'm placing 3 double crochets right in the middle. And then I'm going to chain 1 and repeat that same process all the way around with now the 3 double crochets in the corner, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and then continue around. So I'm going to finish the rest of this row and I'll see you at the end. So now at the end here, I'm going to chain 1, insert my hook into that first stitch that we had made of the row, pull that yarn through into a slip stitch, and again I'm going to cast off because I'm going to be changing colors. Now our final color is going to be, once again, this white yarn. So I'm going to find the end again. There we go. And now again I'm going to insert my hook into any one of these 4 corners. So I'm going to do this one here. I'm going to bring my yarn through, and we're going to do the exact same thing that we did for the previous row. So I'm going to chain 2 and then place 2 double crochets into that corner. I'm then going to chain 2 again and 3 double crochets into the exact same corner. Oops. Chain 1, 3 double crochets into this first section. Chain 1, 3 double crochets into the next section. Chain 1, and now we're going to do that corner again. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Same exact thing we did for the other previous rows. So I'm going to just go ahead and finish up this row, and I'll see you at the end. And now at the end of this row, I'm going to just chain 1, insert my hook into that first stitch, and slip stitch closed. And instead of casting off right away, I'm actually going to go ahead and create a little bit of a border around this square with my white yarn still. So I'm going to chain 1, and now into this immediate next stitch here, I'm going to insert my hook and place a single crochet. I'm going to do the same thing with the next stitch. And now here at the corner, I'm going to place 2 single crochets into that corner, 1 for each chain that we made. So there's 2 single crochets. I'm going to pick up this next stitch and single crochet into the next section, 1 in each stitch. And now at the next section, because we did 1 chain here, I'm going to only place 1 single crochet into that section. And then single crochet along again, 1 into each stitch. And then this section, again, 1 single crochet. And I'm just going to work my way all the way around, placing a single crochet into every single stitch, and then a single crochet into each section based off of how many chains that we placed into that section. So now at this corner, again, I'm going to do 2 single crochets because we have 2 chains in the corner. So I'm going to work my way all the way around with single crochets, and I'll see you at the end of this row. So now that I have reached the end of this row, I'm going to insert my hook into that very first single crochet that we made, and I'm going to slip stitch together. I'm then going to cast off with this color. For this hat, you're going to need to make 5 of these granny squares, so feel free to watch back that part of the video as many times as you need to make your granny squares. I have all 5 of them right here, so I can begin assembling the hat. So I'm going to start with my first 2 granny squares, and I'm going to place them right sides together. That way all of these strings are on the outside. And I'm going to hold them together, line them up. Okay, so now to attach these 2 squares together, you are more than welcome to just use a needle and some yarn, but I found that using the hook just goes a lot faster for me. So I'm going to find the very first stitch on this side of my square, which for me is going to be this one. And now if I look at the top of the stitch, you can see that there are 2 separate loops that make up one stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook just through that very first loop. So just the first loop is on the hook. And so now I'm going over to the other side where I have this square, and I'm going to pick up the exact same stitch on this side. And this time I'm going to pick up the back loop. So just that one there. And I'm holding these together, making sure that they're lined up perfectly. And because these are, I can now begin stitching them together. So I'm going to take my white yarn or whatever color you're using for the border, and I'm going to pull that through and create a chain to keep them in place. So now I'm going up to the next stitch, and again I'm going to pick up just that first loop, and then on this side I'm picking up what is the back loop here, and I'm going to pull the yarn through, and I'm going to slip stitch, so I'm going to also pull it through that loop there on my hook, creating a slip stitch. So then I'm going to go ahead and do that again in the next stitch, picking up just the front loop, going to the other side, and again picking up just that back loop. Like so. And I'm just going to work my way all the way up the side of this square. Again, you are welcome to use a needle and yarn. This just goes a lot faster for me with the hook. And I'm just picking up the front loop and the back loop and slip stitching those stitches together all the way up to the edge of this granny square. Now I'm going to connect these last 2 stitches like so. Place 1 chain to keep them in place. And now you can see the granny squares are attached. Now I went ahead and I'm attaching the last of those 4 granny squares. Just like I showed you before, I'm just doing a slip stitch all the way down this row. Here's the last stitch. And now you can see we have all 4 granny squares connected the same way in a nice row. So now I'm going to go ahead and fold them together. Now we're going to turn them into a circle. So I'm going to connect these 2 together in the same manner. Again, I'm finding that very first stitch, inserting my hook into the first loop of that stitch, finding the same stitch on the other side, inserting my hook into the last loop of that stitch. And once I reach the end here, instead of casting off and cutting my yarn, I'm going to bring in our last granny square. So our 5th granny square, which is going to be the top, I'm bringing that in here. Again, right side facing in, wrong side facing out. And I'm going to just bring one of the corners up to right where we left off. So as you can see, here's the seam. I'm bringing one of my corners of that granny square right here. I'm going to pick one of these next stitches. I'm going to do this one here, inserting my hook into that first loop. I'm then going to pick a stitch from the corner and insert my hook into the back loop, like so. I'm then going to slip stitch together. And I'm now going to work my way all the way along the top of this hat here. So I'm going to slip stitch the top of this granny square with this granny square. And now at the corner here, I'm just going to continue to work my way around. So I'm just going to go right into this stitch. And I'm working my way around the corner onto the next side of the granny square here. So I'm just going to go ahead and work my way all the way around, attaching all of the sides of this granny square, and I'll see you once I'm done with that. And so now we have the actual foundation of our hat. I'm going to turn this right side out, tucking all these ends in for now. We'll deal with that later. So then you're going to want to try this on, just make sure you like the way it fits, and of course if it is too big or too small you can definitely add or take away a couple rows, but this size I found fits almost everyone, so you should be fine with this pattern. And now we can begin making the brim of the hat, and I'm going to make the brim with white. I'm now almost second guessing myself and thinking maybe I should do a green brim. but I think we're going to commit to the white. Okay. You can all put in the comments how much I should have done the green so then I can regret it forever, but we're going to do white instead. And we are going to be doing this with our hats now facing right side out. So what we're going to do is I'm going to insert my hook into one of these stitches. I'm going to go right into this one here. And I'm going to just chain one to lock it in place, and now I'm going to start single crocheting, and I'm going to make quite tight stitches. I'm keeping my tension very tight because I want the brim of this hat to be a very sturdy brim that kind of keeps its shape. In order to get that, I have to keep my tension quite tight. So I'm going to just single crochet until I reach the first little seam here of the granny squares. There we go. And now into the seam of these granny squares, I'm inserting my hook and I'm going to place an increase. So I placed one single crochet, I'm going to put my hook into that exact same stitch, and I'm going to place another single crochet. And so now we're going to go along like normal, a single crochet into each stitch until I reach the middle of this next granny square. Again, I'm keeping my tension quite tight as I do this because I want the brim to be very sturdy. And now once I reach the middle of this granny square, which I can tell because it's going to be the middle section of the granny square. So this one right here, and it's going to be that one stitch that comes right out of it. So I have my one stitch that's in the middle of the granny square. I'm going to insert my hook and we're going to do another increase. So I'm placing 2 single crochets into that one stitch, and we are going to have quite a few increases around the brim of this hat. If you have a hard time keeping track of those stitches, I recommend that you mark them with a stitch marker, but I'm just going to kind of memorize where each of them go, so I will not be marking them on my project, but you definitely can if you feel the need to. So now I'm going to single crochet again all the way back to the next seam of the granny squares. And now again, right here in the seam of the hat, I'm going to place an increase. So we're going to do 2 single crochets into one stitch. And then continue like normal to the middle of the next granny square. So now in the middle of this granny square here, which again I can find because it's the middle section and the middle stitch, I'm going to do another increase of 2 single crochets. That is all this is going to be, is you're just going to go around doing rows of single crochet with an increase in every seam of the granny square where it connects, as well as every middle of each granny square. So I'm just going to go around and finish this row, keeping my tension very tight and adding my increases where I need to. So now I'm right back where I started in the beginning of this row. I'm going to insert my hook into that first stitch that we made, slip stitch closed, and I'm going to chain one so we can begin our next row. I will get a stitch marker. I don't have one on hand right now, but typically when I'm doing this, here, I'll use this little plant. I will always mark the start of my row for this project. That way I don't lose track of where the row starts and ends because it can get confusing over time. Once again, you can mark each of the increases if that'll help you remember. I just remember where they are in the project. They're at each seam and each middle of the granny square. So I remember to always increase once I reach that point again. And now you just go along doing the exact same thing with a row of single crochet, all of the increases where they're supposed to be. And I end up doing, I think, about 11 rows with my last hat, but really just try it on whenever you feel like it's good and add or take away rows as you need to until you have a brim that is wide enough to your liking. But I'm just going to go around about 10 or 11 times with the increases where they're supposed to be to make the brim of my hat. And then after I'm done with that, I'm just going to go ahead and weave in all those loose ends to complete the project, and that is honestly all there is to it. Look at how perfect this turned out. I'm really happy with the color palette. I really like how the brim turned out. So here is my finished hat, and this only took me like 2 or so hours to make, so it really is a super easy project. And if you ended up making one for yourself, and if you post any pictures of it, then please tag me in those pictures, because I always love to see the way that your hat or project turned out, and I'm really curious to see what kind of colors you used. I just love seeing what you guys end up making. So if you post anything, please tag me in it. If you have any questions about how to make this project, leave those in the comments, or just comment about how much you liked this project, comment about something you want to see in the future. I always take requests, and I am so close to 1,000 subscribers. We have almost reached that milestone. So if you want to be one of the very last people to help me reach that milestone, I would be so grateful to you. So thank you in advance for doing that. And if not that, then perhaps you could like this video. And if not that, then thank you for being here and for watching this video all the way to the end. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that you have a wonderful summer and that you enjoy this bucket hat or sun hat all summer long. It's such a great piece for the summer. And my next project is going to be a pretty big one. I'm very excited about it. I'm currently putting it together, so make sure you stay tuned for that, and I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.